It's indeed an honor to be here. Dear friends, Professor Rajkumar, Professor Sudarshan, Professor Vinod Vyasalu, and Professor Murthy. Thank you very much for inviting me for this special occasion. Again, it is especially for me an honor. All of you who are sitting in front of me are going to spend some time here now. And they're probably some of the most challenging years of your life. I'm going to read what I'm going to say because you must know from your grandparents that old people have a tendency to ramble, go off the subject, tell stories you're not interested in. So I'm not going to speak extempore as far as possible. I'll read so that I'm a little more on the subject. But I'm old and old-fashioned, and you're very young, and what do you call yourselves? Some generation. So obviously, there's a huge difference, and I can't be like you, so I'm going to talk about very old-fashioned values. That's all I know. So let's have a good time while you hear some things which you don't like, some things you like, some things you agree with, some things you don't agree with. But I can't really say things which you actually agree with. Like you don't agree with your grandfather or your father or your mother or your uncle or some of these professors sitting here. So let's have a good time while I say some terrible things, some reasonable things. And that's a part of learning. And that's what you'll have seen through your school and college, that most teachers are horrible. It's not easy to be a teacher. Most teachers are boring. But the good part is some teachers are not. And that's what's exciting. Because some teachers are really, you care for. Some of you care for one kind of teachers, some of you care for some other kind of teachers, but all of you have found some teachers who've excited you. And I think that's the good part of going to school and college. And you will always find some who will interest you. When I stand in front of you, I also realize that how you don't know how it's important for me to be invited here, because it's not very common for a mere professor to be invited to give a commencement lecture. You have to be famous, you have to be rich, or you have to be an important vice chancellor or a director. I'm none of those. So you'll hear a different kind of story because I'm excited that I'm here. Looking at you, I'm reminded of a day almost 55 years ago when I sat like you in a small auditorium in IIT Bombay as a fresh student, soaked to the skin because we had to walk from our hostel to the main building under the Bombay monsoon. I was wearing a raincoat, wearing a hat, wearing gumboots, but the water had gone inside. My gumboots were full of water. And we were sitting in this auditorium as new students, probably the 5th generation of IIT. And a director welcomed us, telling us that we were the cream of the Indian nation. I had never heard that before, whether it was cream or dahi or rabri. But we were proud that we were the cream of the nation. Then he told us that, I think what he told us was that what we owed the country, how lucky we were, what we must do for the country, how fortunate we were, boys and 4 girls, there were only 4 in our class. It's a bit different here. How lucky we were to be there and what our duty was to the country. I don't think I was very inspired. I was just wondering, when can I get back to the hostel, change my clothes, and go back with the others to explore the vices in Bombay? Not listen to lectures. Because I had never lived, the only reason I joined IIT was so we could be in Bombay, the great place of Hindi movies and bars. Sorry, there were no bars, it was a dry state at that time. But we went to Bombay to have a good time. But it's not easy to have a good time if you're in an IIT. a lot of exams, a lot of horrible stuff. So I really don't want to tell you what you should do for the country and be a good nationalist. I really don't care. That you may or may not discover on your own. Okay? Since all of you have made it here, I suppose you regard yourselves as pretty bright people. And probably many of you are quite egotistical also. And it's good to be egotistical because you have some pride in yourself then. But when you're egotistical, you have to listen to other people also at times. And so that's what you'll have to do just now. But as a bunch of bright young people, you are going to find exciting things to do here. I really don't know what you will find interesting in this talk or what will be useful for you. There has always existed this chasm between generations. The older generation always thinks that the young ones are up to no good. And you probably heard that before. I sometimes think so too, that the young ones are up to no good. They really don't know what's good for them. But you probably know better. Maybe it's always been so that people think this way, but I think what I'd like to talk in a rambling way on what's happening in this turbulent world of today. Now, I don't know whether it's more turbulent than before or less, but it is turbulent. And therefore, we have to discuss difficult things, complicated things, things which are not always clear. If I have anything uplifting or hopeful to contribute, it is possible it's purely by chance and not by design. You are here to learn. Some of you may already know what you want to do and what you want in life, and you're chasing your goals with single-minded determination. So those few of you who are in that position, congratulations. Many of you probably don't know what you want and are struggling to find out what you want to do. You may be here only because your parents told you to be here, or some friends or uncle or grandfather or someone else or the newspaper said this is a good place to be. But you really don't know whether it's really a good place to be. It's entirely normal. When I was in your place, I didn't know what IIT was. I didn't know what engineering was. I didn't know how boring it would be. But I'm glad I went there and spent 5 years getting bored. Sometimes it was not so boring, especially outside the university. But I certainly didn't go to IIT Bombay to become a professor. I went to Bombay because it would be exciting, far away from home, no parents, and real freedom. No one to tell you what to do. In those days, our hostels were not as strict as hostels here, or the new institutions. We could do almost what we felt like and fool our warden. And that was great. But maybe it's not so good today because times have changed. And because when you're really free, you can explore. You might find out what you want to do while you're here. That will need a lot of exploring. You might also find out that when you leave here, you still don't know what to do. That's also normal. You will have to keep exploring even after you leave this place. It took me about 30 years of exploring before I found what I really like to do. So I had already spent 7 years after my bachelor's degree in the university again before I liked what I was doing. And I'm glad I wasted 7 plus 5, 12 years trying to find out what to do. Because I like it so much that I've been doing the same thing for the last 40 years and still enjoying it. So it's really important to find out what you like. It may not be what your teachers tell you what's good. It may not be what your parents have told you. Only you will have to find out what you like and chase it. You will have to also unlearn many things you have been taught in school. For example, that India has existed for 5,000 years. India, as we know it, has not even existed for 40 years because India changed when we added Sikkim to India. So India, as you know it today, is a very young country like most countries. There were no countries 200 years ago because countries need technology to become a country. A country is defined by a border. And the same rules apply within the border. If you didn't have the telegraph, how can you enforce your law 1,000 kilometers away? So until technology arrived to send your orders immediately 1,000 kilometers away, there could be no countries. There were no borders. Only empires and kings, and the borders changed every day. This is something you're not taught in school. This is what you're not taught in school anywhere in the world. In every school, in every school, any country, you're taught how you were always a country. But countries change. Yugoslavia has become 5 countries. So things change. So we have to take that in stride also. So you learn that what we are taught, some of it is true. Sometimes the truth changes. Sometimes you learn new things which were not taught to you, which are truer. So we have to have an open mind. And I think the problem is, as I think the ground from what I'm going to say has already been laid by the 3 professors who have spoken before me, talking about interdisciplinary studies and exploration. You see, you'll be told that you might want to separate art, science, technology, music, literature as different pursuits. But how you excel in each is about the same. Exploration, observation, pattern recognition, and that's terribly important. Observation, looking at patterns, and pattern recognition. And when you discover patterns, it gives you meaning and joy of discovery and passion in your pursuit, and enormous happiness as a person. There's almost no difference in how a painter, a musician, a historian, a physicist, or an engineer operates. A scientist says that he or she makes observations and does experiments. A painter tries different strokes and different paints many times before deciding on what she likes on the canvas. A musician keeps singing the same line or playing the same melody over and over and over and over again, trying to understand the pattern until the musician sees beauty in what they finally hear. Even when you're looking for a girlfriend or boyfriend, you're doing experiments. If I smile this way, she likes me. If I say this, he likes me. So you keep doing experiments like a scientist, and you see patterns. Now I think he really likes me. And that's a pattern. You act on that pattern, and sometimes you get results. Sometimes you get a slap. And that teaches you more, the failure, how to operate next time. That's what a scientist does. So there's really no difference. Everything you do in life is science. And so we must understand this, that actually how we operate in life is learning and understanding and looking at patterns, and looking at patterns and meaning out of them is formally called statistics. Okay, so different tools we use. Some people, like some gurus, are really good in recognizing patterns in their brains without doing calculations, and that's how they fool you or encourage you. And that's what's exciting, that different kind of people have different ways of understanding things and seeing things. That's why we choose different disciplines. For example, a good architect is one who can look at a model or a drawing and then imagine how the building would look standing on the street, towering above her. Whereas you, as a non-architect, Only look at the building and the model from the top. So you really don't know how it will look when it is built. So only those human beings who can imagine that building and that pattern become good architects. Those of you who cannot do that will not become good architects no matter what training you get. You become medium architects, but not outstanding architects. I cannot become a good musician because I can't carry a tune. I don't see the difference. And that's why I was hated in school when I sang loudly with my friends, because I always sang out of tune. And I didn't understand why they don't like me, because I couldn't hear that I was singing out of tune. So this is the issue, that we have to keep doing experiments and discover what works. And this discovery gives us enormous pleasure and meaning in life. What is important is that we must differentiate between information, propaganda, knowledge, and truth. Truth is the most difficult one because we will never ever know what truth is. We only know some approximation to the truth. That's what we always try and do all our lives. Even in science, we get close to the truth, but we never know that it is actually true. And just remember that. You never know that it's actually true. You're close to the truth, and we operate on that truth. That's how we make this building. You're quite certain it's not going to fall on you. How do you know that? It can fall on you. How do you know that the earth is round? Have you ever seen it? How do you know there's an atom? Have you ever seen an atom? You only believe it because some important people have told you so. And that's how a lot of knowledge operates, because important people tell you that it is so. It's your job to find out if it is actually so. And I will do a small experiment now. It's a very famous ad.
Is a healthy smile, because regular brushing with Ultra Bright means the brightest teeth, the freshest breath. Helps prevent cavities too. Ultra Bright, keep your mouth. For a healthy smile, get Ultra.
Now, is all of that true? How many have you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend because you changed your brand of toothpaste? So what is that? Is that information? Is that knowledge? Is that understanding? What is it? What it is it is telling you that you buy a big toothbrush with, well, this is not ultra bright, but it is close up, same thing, with a huge nozzle, and you're supposed to put a lot of toothpaste there. Then brush your toothpaste with this. Is this correct? What do dentists tell you? To have a modern toothpaste like this, which costs more than other toothpaste, it'll keep the germs away. And this toothbrush, which is specially designed with these cavities, to hold it properly, and this long thing with a little thing extra, there's a lot of information there. What do you learn from this information? What do you learn from this information and understanding? That is all lies. Has a dentist ever told you that this is all lies? Has any professor here told you that this is all lies? That's a problem. This has been made, and this has been made by the brightest policy makers and corporations, and the brightest designers. They do not tell you that actually the cheapest toothbrush with the smallest brush, with this toothpaste tube will do the job. Actually, what science tells us is that if you put this much toothpaste, it is enough. Okay? So why the other one? No. Because it makes a lot of money for the toothpaste manufacturer. It doesn't do anything for your teeth. I have not used toothpaste in the last 30 years. I just take my little toothbrush, put it in my toilet soap, and brush my mouth. My teeth, sorry. It does the same, toilet soap does the same thing as this toothpaste, and you save a lot of money. Because toilet soap is safe and kills bacteria, except it doesn't smell so nice. Now, if you want to smell something nice so you get a better boyfriend, girlfriend, or a wife or a husband, that's okay. But it has nothing to do with oral hygiene. If you wash your mouth after every meal with plain water, then you don't even need toothpaste. You can just brush your teeth with just a toothbrush. That is understanding and knowledge. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Now, this is the issue, that how do we find out what is the truth? Because what I've just said here in the last few minutes, no dentist will ever tell you that unless the dentist is a family friend. Because they get paid by toothpaste companies to put their ads in the office. So it's a very complex world, and how do we deal with it? That's the issue. The problem is that how do we understand, how do we understand this difference between propaganda, information, knowledge, understanding, and truth? Is not easy. Because we are in a very, very complex world with the brightest people working for very large salaries in the largest companies making policy. And I hope some of you do that to make a lot of money. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are doing some good work for the world. So question is, how do we try and understand more than what we learn in class? And that's the most important thing in college, to understand more than what you learn in class. The process of teaching and learning is very complex and personal. Human interaction, face-to-face interaction, is terribly important, which neither technology nor money can replicate. So use the internet and everything you can get to get a lot of information, but ultimately what you understand, what you learn, what you will enjoy will come from face-to-face debate, knowledge, fights, and understanding. Look out for inspiration from the few teachers and friends who care, who excite you. It will come without notice, and sometimes. Interact with as many talented people as you like. All teachers cannot be outstanding, but all, and I say this with confidence, all teachers teach you something, including the ones you think are bad. It's very important to go through this life meeting good, bad, and indifferent people, because much later in life, we realize, like I did, that some of the professors I hated in IIT actually taught me a lot. Some who were the strictest and gave me low marks taught me more about my subject than some professors who were very lenient and didn't care whether I had copied my homework or not. Much later, I was much more grateful for those professors who took time to check my answer books and told me that you have not spent time on this, or this is not correct, or you have copied it. Because they teach you much more than everything else. You will also come to understand that learning from tough teachers, hard taskmasters, and professors who really know their subject will be the best gift you will receive in your stay here. It is very difficult to remain intellectually honest without going through exams, quizzes, and tests about topics that you have not understood. There'll be many times in your career here you will not understand what you've been taught, but you'll have to take the exam and go through those process of passing the exams. When in difficulty, we have tendencies to take shortcuts, and we know what the other words for those shortcuts. If you do, recognize that it's not right, and it might harm you in the long run. Try and understand why you have landed up in that situation, why you don't understand the question in your question paper. Maybe you don't like that topic. Maybe it doesn't interest you at all. That's why you didn't spend time on it. Therefore, and solutions, it may be because you've been lazy. Solutions to both these issues are difficult. But if something bores you to death, find out what does not and try and move in that direction over the long term. Do the things which you have to do, which you don't like, which are difficult, because you have to do it to pass. But constantly you have to try and find what you do like. Everything you will be taught will probably be a part of a very complex, dynamic world. It has been mentioned earlier how most of the things we do are interdisciplinary and very complex. Most of us who deal with these subjects know that immense dynamic systems cannot be understood by breaking them into small parts, standalone chapters, and learning modules. But that is what we have to end up doing as teachers, because that's the easier way to teach. And we are all fall in that problem, because it's not easy to teach complex subjects as a whole. We break them down into parts. It's up to you to bring them together again after your teachers break them down into parts. And the reason we break things down into parts is because we have to give exams and answer questions and grade them objectively. It's not easy to grade things if the questions are complex. So it's a very complex, difficult world, and the teaching and learning process is never easy. And you have to understand that while you learn the material, the world will come up with surprises. If possible, try and understand what's not being taught. And it's much easier for you to do that than it was in my time, to read things, understand things from other sources. I'd like to skip to a little bit of values and understanding from an old-fashioned way. We are told every day that selfish, ambitious persons believing in undiluted individualism have the highest chance of success. I don't think personally that there's much evidence for this. The benefits of the rights we have today, the freedoms, gender equality, racial equality, and scientific inventions we feel belong to us were won by a huge collective struggle, by a lot of people fighting together, by generations before us who fought in the streets, who went to jail, and some even died. Some of you women sitting in front of me will have to remember that just to get the vote, women had to go out on the streets, demonstrate, fight, get beaten by lathis because they were anti-national, and went to jail. So it's a very difficult issue, because if some people had not been anti-national, women would not have their freedom today, at least theoretically. And so these are the things we learn in college, because that's when you're free. When you have a job and a husband and a wife and children, your freedom gets diluted. You're the freest right now to do what you want to do. All these collective struggles, they were not individuals. They were collective struggles. And they have left for us the benefit of their collective knowledge and benefits and victories. So none of us is an individual hero. None of us. We all do our work resting on the work of the giants before us. So even if I do my work alone, it's a part of all the people who did that work before me to do what I'm doing now. So collectiveness is terribly important. Recognizing that we work together for important things is very important to understand. A great scientist is usually the result of great team effort, before him, before her, and while they're working. An important thing to internalize while you are here. This is why honesty in the academic enterprise is taken very seriously in all good institutions. And unfortunately, there are not enough of them. Belief is you're in one. And so cheating with data harms everyone who comes after you because they get the wrong information to work on. And if you get the wrong information to work on, you also do bad work. So cheating in other areas of work may not be that bad, but in the academic sphere, it harms the generations afterwards in research. And therefore, being honest is terribly important intellectually. People like me and a few others also believe that intellectual dishonesty may be far worse a crime than financial impropriety. A prime minister telling lies to invade other countries is probably much more harmful than a prime minister making a little bit of money on the side. You have to understand these complexities. Do you want a prime minister who tells lies to invade another country? Or do you want a prime minister who keeps peace but makes a little bit of money? Usually we don't want either one of those choices. But in the complex world, that's what we get. But no one knows what learning makes people better human beings. What kind of education makes better human beings? Education makes you know more. But whether you become a better human being is not clear. And we can say that because some of our freedom fighters from Mahatma Gandhi downwards did not go to very good schools. They went to schools and colleges under slavery. But they were great people, had great ideas. So just the idea of what is good education is what we keep struggling in. What is good education? Because people from the best universities of the world have helped kill millions of people for no reason as politicians and heads of large corporations. All we can do as teachers is to try and make students understand what they learn. It appears that even if we can't make them good people, we can at least make them understand more than what they learn to get good marks. I think that's probably what the best a teacher can do, is make you understand things and then leave it to you on what you want to do with it. The adult society you are dealing with is, I think, is not really a very nice place these days, nationally or internationally. It is quite attractive visually for very rich people because they have their fancy cars, jewelry, house, swimming pools, and everything else. But if you look at in human terms, is it a very nice place? And that's what you have to say. I won't be here very soon. So I don't have to worry about it too much anymore. We might have made your world a little bit worse for you, but you have to decide what you people want. Therefore, all of you will have to think very seriously about what kind of a world you want. And that's what we try to do by learning. As social animals, we depend on interaction among human beings. We depend upon interest and love of those around us. That is why it is great to be at a good university away from parents. Because you've heard your parents for many years, so leave them alone now. Learn new things. And make the best of this opportunity. Dealing with people you don't like in the hostel and terrible professors is a great learning experience. That's how you learn how to deal with the world. And so don't think it's horrible that you have bad neighbors or a bad roommate. ठीक है, हो जाएगा. You'll get another roommate later. But they make you learn things. Don't miss out on it. Even more important will be the interaction with others who love and care for you. And you will find them too. They will make you laugh and cry, help you when you need it most. And I think that's terribly important in science and in academics, that those people who help you do your work. And as professors, It's very important for us that we have students and colleagues and researchers who help us in our work. Otherwise, we can't do it. You will have to confront systems that are considered an advance in society and force you to become a part of it, almost by compulsion. If some of these technical advances are becoming serious problems, like climate change and human loneliness, some of you may have experienced it. There's a serious problem in the world. Climate change is a very serious problem. And we know from international work and studies that human loneliness is also becoming a serious problem. And I think this is what you can tackle being here as students in a community. We'll have to find out whether you can overcome these compulsions being forced on you and move towards a more life-enabling ideology. The word ideology has been given a bad name recently, but all of us live by ideologies. When you go to your grandmother's home for dinner, and there's too much salt in the dal, and she says, "How do you like the food, beta?" What do you say? "The dal is horrible?" No. She says, "Nahi dadi, bahut acha khana hai." That's an ideology you have internalized, that you should not displease your grandmother, especially if she has money. So the point is that ideology is your belief system. It's not a bad word. Can your modern technologies, Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, give you real happiness? Or can you tweak them so that you spend more time loving or annoying each other face to face? I know people who have 600 friends on the Facebook. How many friends do they have in real life? I don't know. But it's great to have at least one friend in real life. Can we spend more time exchanging our views, fears, longings, loves, hates in much greater detail face to face? These are questions you will have to answer, not me. Can we spend more of our intellect understanding our own needs as social beings and discuss seriously the life-denying ideologies of unadulterated individualism? And this is a serious issue, because loneliness is probably coming from believing too much of yourself as an individual hero. I think this individualism is celebrating and enforcing a social isolation and forcing life-destroying competition. Competition is necessary, but not completely. Can we spend more of our intellect understanding our own needs? Many of your leaders and column writers remind us every day that all of you sitting before me are hugely aspirational, unlike fuddy-duddies of my generation. But please remember, every generation is aspirational. There's no generation which is not aspirational. When I went to IIT, there were no jobs. When I graduated from IIT, there were no jobs. We didn't have all these cars, telephones, internet, etc. But I think we were hugely aspirational. We wanted to do things, get on with life. So everyone is aspirational. It's only the kind of aspiration which changes. Many years ago, we fought simpler battles, and we thought we knew our enemies quite clearly. The British were quite an easy enemy to identify. Racism was easy to identify. Unfair labor practices and discrimination against women could not be justified. Those clear battles are still half won. You have new battles which may prove to be more difficult. The injustices may be somewhat invisible, and you may be captive of ideologies like consumerism and individualism, and we have to think about it. As Joseph Brodsky once said, life is a game with many rules, but no referee. One learns how to play it more by watching it than by consulting a book, including the holy books. Small wonder then that so many people play dirty, that so few win and so many lose. A bit cynical, but that's what there is. So it is up to you. Life for you will be complex. Try and understand what you learn. But then I may be completely wrong. You do what you want to do. That's why you're here to learn and understand, and you're very lucky. And what a fantastic opportunity. One last thought. In our country today, there are very few young middle-class people fighting for justice. There are very few young people fighting for justice. So some of you who have it in you, use your knowledge, go out there and give the oppressors hell. It's your duty. Don't forget to have a great time, enjoy yourself, and good luck in creating a better world for you and your children to grow up in. Thank you very much.